And with us now is Seth Jones. He's an expert on ISIS, among many other things, with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And we're also joined by national security expert Jamil Jaffer. Seth, can you tell what we're seeing here, if this is ISIS inspired or if this might actually be ISIS coordinated?
Brianna, good question. I think at this point we don't know the answer yet. That will have to be determined in the investigation as it proceeds. But I will say this does not really have the hallmark of an ISIS-directed attack. The ones that we've seen that have been directed, there's been significant planning for the attack. They've usually involved multiple individuals. Think, for example, of the January attack against the Qasem Soleimani ceremony in Iran, which does appear to have been an ISIS directed attack. Multiple individuals involved in a coordinated active shooter-like attack. This is a much more rudimentary one, so probably has more of the hallmarks of an inspired attack, and that would also be pretty consistent with most of the ISIS attacks or plots in the United States. It's hard to get someone like that into the U.S., so the vast majority of the ones we've seen in the Hudson River, for example, or in San Bernardino or the Pulse nightclub in Florida have generally been ISIS-inspired attacks.
Yeah, there'd been this drumbeat of ISIS-inspired attacks, Jamil, and then there'd been kind of a little bit of a reprieve. And now you have the president saying that the New Orleans suspect posted these videos on social media only hours before the attack, indicating that he was indeed inspired by ISIS. You say that we're seeing an uptick here in recent recruiting by ISIS in recent months and years.
Well, Brianna, we've seen an uptick in their efforts to try and get Americans and Europeans to conduct attacks in where they live, where they reside, in an effort to try and spread this toxic ideology in order to spread the terror across the globe, because they can't effectively do it with their own operatives, as Seth has correctly laid out. And so we've seen these attacks. We've seen the attack in Germany at the Christmas market. We're now seeing this attack. And this is a steady theme that ISIS is engaged in. So it wouldn't be surprised to see if that's exactly what happened here. And there is this nexus between his economic challenges, his family challenges, and potentially mental health issues. And this was a guy who had served honorably, it appears, as far as we can tell, for 13 years in the U.S. military, now turned to an awful, awful outcome.
Yeah, and Seth, I want to play a little bit more. We have a video of the New Orleans suspect speaking positively about his skills in a post-military career in real estate. Here he is again.
So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist.
Does it surprise you, Seth, that someone like that could be radicalized?
No, we've seen individuals from the military that have been radicalized. The challenge, the radicalization process can vary dramatically. For some, it can be weeks or months, and in some cases, it can be very quick. Again, not entirely clear what the radicalization process was at this point, but I think I do want to pick up on one point that Jamil mentioned earlier, which is we are seeing more plots and attacks by ISIS. And I would remind folks as well that there were 9 arrests in 2024. 5 of them were involving ISIS plots in the United States. That's an uptick from 2023. The U.S. has also been pretty aggressively targeting ISIS camps in places like Syria. December last month, a lot of activity from U.S. Central Command targeting ISIS camps in Syria as the Assad regime collapsed. So this is a reminder that we have not fully gotten out of this stage, that terrorism is a threat.
An important one. Jamil, what do we need to have on our radar with all of that in mind?
Well, look, obviously we should be looking at the big upcoming events. We've got a presidential inauguration on January 20th, the Sugar Bowl tomorrow, now delayed from today, the Super Bowl coming up, but also the swearing in of a new Congress. A lot of things going on in the United States where terrorists could take action, people inspired by Al-Qaeda or ISIS. Al-Qaeda remains a threat as well. And remember, as Seth points out, we've been very active against ISIS. We've killed 3 of their top leaders in the last 5 years, including on December 20th, as Seth was saying, we killed Abu Yusuf, also known as who also was a senior ISIS leader, and having taken him out, that could also inspire somebody or could push them to try and press somebody they were trying to inspire to actually take action. Now, that's a concern as well.
Yeah, need to be on higher alert for sure. Seth, Jamil, thank you to you both.